In today's report, we take a closer look at one of those televised debates that has sparked a strong public reaction. This time, a Labour MP openly dismissed key aspects of British history during a live broadcast, provoking outrage among viewers. Throughout the debate, the MP adopted a particularly provocative tone, mocking British patriotism without hesitation. He downplayed the significance of Gibraltar's sovereignty and dismissed voters' legitimate concerns, all while his party moved to hand over control of Gibraltar's border to Spanish authorities without consulting the British people. However, one woman stood up to challenge those remarks. She called out the Labour Party's falsehoods and directly named David Lammy and his allies as individuals fundamentally opposed to the national interest, accusing them of betraying Britain by allowing the steady erosion of its integrity. This isn't just about Gibraltar, it's about sovereignty, loyalty, and the direction this country is heading. The public's anger in the wake of this debate was tangible, and after watching the footage, it's easy to see why. But before we dive in, remember to support the channel by hitting the like button and subscribing to stay updated with more content like this. Under the current agreement, Spanish border officials will be stationed at both the airport and port of Gibraltar. They will be responsible for inspecting travelers and, in some cases, will have the authority to refuse entry. One commentator described the deal as an attempt to resolve one of Brexit's remaining loose ends. Nevertheless, her response was firm. She found it outrageous that the Labour government had once again given away something that, in her view, rightfully belongs to the British people. Although government representatives insist that this arrangement does not compromise Gibraltar's sovereignty, she argued that it is a decision against Britain's best interests, yet another example of anti-national policy driven by David Lammy, whom she accused of acting in an undemocratic manner. It was also pointed out that at no stage have the people of Gibraltar been consulted on what they actually want. Even though Gibraltar's chief minister supports the deal, many see it as something imposed without genuine democratic backing. This lack of consultation is viewed as an insult, not only to Brexit voters, but also to communities in the north of England and, crucially, to the people of Gibraltar themselves. For many, the agreement is deeply offensive and should be revoked. Another voice in the debate labeled those criticisms as offensive in themselves, arguing that Gibraltar's democratically elected leader fully supports the agreement. That position was justified on the grounds that, nearly 10 years after the Brexit referendum, the Conservative Party had failed to deliver a workable deal for Gibraltar, and that this new arrangement is designed to fill that gap. According to this view, the agreement prevents a hard border from being implemented, something that could have cost the British taxpayer hundreds of millions of pounds. Instead, it aims to streamline border operations through joint mechanisms akin to the shared control seen on the Eurostar between the UK, France, and Belgium. The focus, then, is on improving border efficiency without compromising sovereignty. Yet, critics on the opposing side once again describe the deal as a betrayal by the Labour Party, accusing them of trying to realign the UK with the European Union. Although some argue that Spain is a friendly nation and not a threat, it was stressed that moves like this run counter to the clear mandate expressed by British voters in the 2016 referendum. The central criticism is that this represents a gradual surrender of territorial control and a loss of national identity. For many, these concessions undermine the very outcome of the Brexit vote. Labour MPs responded by saying that what the public now seeks is a practical and stable relationship with the EU, one that strengthens the economy, supports travel, and protects vulnerable communities like Gibraltar, which has suffered the consequences of Brexit. They also reminded the public that this is not the first instance of Labour handing over authority on key matters, and that similar patterns are now being seen with Gibraltar's airport. Critics argue that Labour does not adequately defend Britain's national interest, and that the views of Gibraltarians should be sought directly before any such agreement is signed. While some believe these negotiations were inevitable, a deep mistrust persists regarding David Lammy's ability to defend Britain's interests at the negotiating table. Others have expressed caution, preferring to wait for the full terms of the deal to be published. Still, they remain concerned, pointing to previous examples, such as the recent agreement with Qatar, which critics claim involve excessive economic concessions. That deal with Qatar, they argue, provided generous tax breaks to a foreign government while British citizens may now face future tax hikes under figures like Rachel Reeves. In this context, many are calling for greater transparency and competence in future negotiations, as there is a perception that any agreement led by Lamy ultimately comes at a cost to the UK. While some insist that this is simply about keeping the Gibraltar border functional, others have pointed out that a temporary deal already existed, suggesting there was no need to rush into new terms without scrutiny. Nevertheless, it was warned that if you're in a British overseas territory like Gibraltar, caution is advised when David Lammy is involved, given his track record. Supporters of the deal argue that it avoids the huge costs associated with a potential border closure. Still, others are demanding clarity on the £30 billion committed to Qatar and question the logic of entering negotiations that, from their perspective, seem to benefit foreign governments more than the UK itself. To many, these concessions reveal an incoherent approach, cutting taxes abroad while planning tax increases at home. The conclusion for some is straightforward. Whenever Labour handles international negotiations, Britain ends up worse off. It was also pointed out that both the Qatar and Gibraltar talks were poorly managed from the outset and have yet to produce effective outcomes. From a national security standpoint, the Qatar deal has been defended on the basis that it was welcomed by key allies such as the United States due to its strategic importance. In a time defined by geopolitical competition, diplomatic wins in regions like Gibraltar carry significant weight. Thousands of people cross that border every day for work or personal reasons, and supporters believe this agreement will ease that process. For that reason, some say it should be seen as a positive step. Even those who remain skeptical of David Lammy, especially regarding his lack of action on issues like Gaza, acknowledge this as a tangible achievement. The discussion wrapped up with dismissive comments aimed at one of the participants, whose opinion was quickly brushed aside. In the end, the debate left the audience split. But one phrase captured the sentiment of many critics: every time Labour negotiates, the UK loses. Do you think this Gibraltar agreement is a practical solution, or just another surrender of British sovereignty? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. In other news, Nigel Farage is facing a significant hurdle in his bid to lead the country. Dominic Cummings, former chief advisor to Boris Johnson, recently told the media that Reform UK has made notable progress in recent months. The party secured a by-election victory in Runcorn and Helsby, in addition to gaining representation in several local councils. Reform UK has also maintained a steady and solid presence in opinion polls, leading many analysts to suggest that Farage may have a genuine shot at reaching number 10, Downing Street. However, Cummings himself, who has previously acknowledged Farage's potential, tempered those expectations in a recent interview with Steve, offering a more critical perspective on the current landscape. He explained that the real challenge facing Farage today reflects a broader trend seen across the Western world. As traditional systems continue to break down, figures like Farage end up constrained by the very same structures that define the mainstream political parties. Cummings pointed out that Reform UK has become caught up in repetitive debates on issues such as mass deportations, an indication, he argues, of how difficult it is to present genuinely alternative ideas within the existing system. Another key issue he highlighted was the lack of high-caliber individuals within Farage's political circle. Despite Reform having 5 MPs, an impressive milestone for a new party, it is still widely seen as a one-man operation. Cummings stressed that this was not meant as a personal criticism, but made clear that Reform UK has yet to launch a serious strategy to recruit top political talent, something he believes is essential for any movement aiming for real, lasting change. In his view, the UK needs a bold and clearly defined political project, one willing to openly challenge and replace the entrenched elites who have dominated for decades. He claimed that thousands of civil servants in Whitehall hold roles that simply shouldn't exist, and that those positions should be eliminated, individuals removed, and institutions rebuilt from the ground up. He warned that it is naive to think the system can be transformed while keeping the same people in charge. As an example, he referred to the civil service, describing it as a dysfunctional environment where many bright young professionals enter in their 20s, but almost all leave before turning 40. He explained that, upon seeing their superiors, these individuals feel uninspired and unwilling to follow the same path, so they pursue other opportunities where they can fulfill their potential, while those who stay and rise through the ranks are often not the most competent. Farage has also faced internal tensions within his party, such as the recent resignation of Zia Youssef, who stepped down as party chairman, though he later returned in a different role. What are your thoughts on everything we've covered today? We'd love to hear your perspective, so leave us a comment down below. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more key updates on British politics. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.